All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our TReC Tourism panel. We are joined tonight by many great panelists from Niagara Falls, including Mayor Robert Rustano, Chris Campos, John Percy, and Scott Swagler. They're all here to give us a realistic outlook on the future for Niagara Falls after COVID and what opportunities we have for the future. All right. This evening, if you have any questions, please send them to my email at erinClark@niagara.edu, or you can text them to me at 716-545-1248, or put them directly in the chat. We'll be MC tonight with Roscoe. He will be taking over from here, but please, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or send me an email, or send me a text. Roscoe?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Roscoe Naggett. I'm the Assistant Director for the Niagara Global Tourism Institute. So a quick history on NGTI. We're an organization established out of NU about 7 years ago. So we operate in and around the tourism and hospitality sector through different initiatives in each of our 4 pillars: research, workforce development, technology, and entrepreneurship. And I'm also a proud NU alum. So tonight I'm honored to host our panelists of TReC. It's the NGTI's co-working and business incubator space in downtown Niagara Falls. Everybody's kind of situated in our Quaker room. So I'm really fortunate to have partnered with each of these gentlemen and their organizations on various projects. And I think they truly encompass the promise and potential of not just the tourism industry, but the city of Niagara Falls. So without further ado, I'll leave it up to each of our panelists to introduce themselves, starting off with Mayor Robert Rustano, Mayor of the city of Niagara Falls.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name is Robert Rustano. I'm the mayor of the city of Niagara Falls. I can tell you that this will be a very exciting conversation. I hope we have some interesting people who are taking part in this panel. I can tell you that as mayor of the city, I know that I have had the good fortune of stepping into office with some very, very talented people. Some of them are here tonight going to be speaking with you and answering some of your questions. So I look forward to your questions. I know that there'll be some great insight here with some of these great folks who are trying.
My name is Chris Campos. I am the president of TM Montante Developments. We are a real estate development company that focuses on commercial and residential developments in Western New York. We've been active developing projects in Niagara Falls over the last several years, and we are excited to do more projects in the city of Niagara Falls. The project in Niagara Falls that we recently completed is the building that we're sitting in today, 616 Niagara, and we are very proud to have partnered with Niagara University, NGTI, and TReC to build out this co-working incubator space. We are a design-oriented firm. We have a long history of doing commercial and industrial projects. We also are very, very excited about doing urban mixed-use projects that have the opportunity to transform neighborhoods. The project we're sitting in today is one of those, and those are the kinds of projects we're looking to do in the city of Niagara Falls going forward.
Great. Good evening, everyone. John Percy, President and CEO of Destination Niagara USA. We are the official destination marketing organization for Niagara Falls, USA, and Niagara County. Our mission is to simply drive group and leisure destination to this community and drive economic value behind that after their visitation. I have been president and CEO of this organization since June 1st of 2006. The organization was formed in 2003, formerly the Niagara Falls Convention and Visitors Bureau was housed here in the city. And then there was a Niagara County Tourism Office. Both of those agencies went away and were dissolved, and this new corporation was formed on June 1st of 2003. So the organization is almost 18 years old. Formerly, the Niagara Tourism and Convention Corporation is really the formal corporate name that has been rebranded as Destination Niagara USA. And again, our job is to really market and sell Niagara Falls and Niagara County to the world. So look forward to being with you this evening.
Okay, my name is Scott Swagler. I'm the general manager here at the DoubleTree Hotel on Buffalo Avenue. We are a redeveloped site that opened in 2017, late 2016, early 2017. We are owned and operated by Marani Hotel Group, which has about 550 hotels hotel rooms in the marketplace in Niagara Falls, in addition to 3 properties on the Canadian side. We work hand in hand with John to support the tourism and the experience of the guest here in the Falls. So I'm looking forward to having people question us on things that are going on in the market. COVID has really upset the whole apple cart, and we're kind of surviving and growing with it at the same time.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight, for taking the time to share your expertise and your thoughts. So really, let's hop right into the questions. So I'll toss it to the group as a whole. So really, there's really no doubt that the current pandemic has really affected the economy and the industry here in Niagara Falls. So first question to the group. So taking lessons from the last 12 months and really planning for the current year, how are each of you in your organizations ensuring that customers or visitors are really getting the same experience with less money and with smaller budgets?
I can start with that. From our guests that are coming in hotels, we're seeing a very different trend in our guests coming into the marketplace. Typically, we rely on the wealthier Canadians and international travelers, which obviously have been shut out of the market completely. So it's tended to force the market to be driven more by, I guess, the local people coming in for staycations, and those local people within a 5 to 8 hour ride even down into Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey. So they tend to have less money. Obviously, we're all struggling with the COVID and job cuts, but they still need to get away. So for us, the focus has really been on an attractive rate, but also pointing out some of the free things or less expensive things that the area has to offer. A lot of times they'd be overlooked in years past because international people don't typically have cars sometimes when they come in. So we'll push them out to the Lewistons, out to the Fort, out to the Winery Trail, to give them another activity that they can do that is not as expensive to do, if the Maid and Mist is closed, especially in the off season when things close down a little bit earlier this year.
I'll add to, thank you, Scott. We had to pivot last year when the community and even our organization had to shut down on March 17th. We didn't stop marketing. We were working from home. We did shut down as far as went black, as far as all advertising to start with, because everyone was shutting down across the world and nobody's mind was on travel or anything else. I had instructed and really directed my staff to work on a step campaign. We did 5 phases beginning in late March, early April. The first would be a destination of hope. And then it went up from there until we could open up the community and the destination with attractions in late June, early July. And then we went full swing in advertising in mid-June. A lot of communities or destinations around the country and around the world never enacted any advertising, but we saw an opportunity that we could still be in the marketplace, welcome guests. And so we went full swing in advertising and even increased our advertising dollars in July and August. Normally we step back from advertising in July and August over the summer period, because we don't necessarily need it during that time. Last year was a completely unique and different year. As Scott said, they are looking for different things. They were looking for open spaces. So our advertising really concentrated on wide open spaces. In fact, the campaign was called Wide Open Spaces Now Open for Adventure. So we really concentrated on our unified and safety program, because customers were concerned first and foremost with safety, and they still are. And secondly, about being in less crowded spaces, being outdoors. Our destination was perfectly suited for that. As we have a lot of rural space, our state park is very open. So that was really the concentration. I don't think the guests had less of an experience anywhere, because most of the attractions operated, yes, with less capacity, but still operated the same as they would previously or they will in the future. Nothing changed as far as the guest experience. Just, they had to follow certain protocols and other things that were put into place to keep people safe and healthy, even while we reopened last summer.
Well, our company, TM Montante Development, isn't so focused on providing the tourist experience directly, we are in the business of developing projects that we think can help to transform the neighborhoods within Niagara Falls. So one of the things that we've been doing throughout COVID, and of course COVID has created a tremendous amount of uncertainty, is we continue to see tremendous opportunity for growth, tremendous opportunity to do great transformational projects in the city of Niagara Falls. So we've been leaning in. We're actively developing several projects right on the outskirts, essentially the fringe neighborhoods where the downtown tourist core meets the residential neighborhoods. We're working on projects that are going to directly serve the tourist market. We're transforming a beautiful Art Deco building from the 1930s into commercial and event space to bring vibrancy. And we're also developing another project on 3rd Street where we're looking to bring the first brewery to downtown Niagara Falls. So we've been leaning in and we have been moving those projects forward because we feel that there is huge opportunity. Once things, quote unquote, get back to normal, we feel that there is going to be a tremendous opportunity to better serve what we feel is an underserved tourist market in the city of Niagara Falls.
Well, let me just say that you've heard from the folks who really are in the midst of that industry. The city of Niagara Falls, starting from last spring, cooperated and provided as much support to all of our entities as we were all sort of groping through what the new world was going to look like in 2020. It was difficult for many, and I was very impressed with the way in which the Destination Niagara group retooled themselves to get the message out to everyone. Our hotel and motel association and our operators also provided what I think was some very important opportunities during that period. Again, retooling themselves to make sure that they were available for whatever was needed. Everything from providing assistance to medical personnel to retooling themselves for the purposes of adjusting to the shifting sands of the way the tourist business was operating. We knew that there were travel restrictions that were a constant moving target. And I can tell you that the folks in the hospitality industry were very, very nimble and doing their best to make sure that they were in compliance, but yet being able to provide an experience for everyone. So from the City Hall perspective, we were trying to provide as much information as we could to those groups so that they weren't caught flat-footed.
And I know it's definitely a hard task, doing the same or doing more with a lot less, but obviously making sure that your visitors or your customers never feel that pain while they're visiting the area. So thank you for the perspective. So we'll change gears a little bit. So a little bit on myself. So I made the active decision to return to NU and to help develop the NGTI years ago. So because I thought that what I saw with the university was, as an anchor institution, they were really doubling down on their commitment to the community at the city of Niagara Falls and really its anchor industry and tourism. So to the group again, how have you or your organizations been able to engage and utilize the NU community, whether it's students, faculty, administration, really, what's the potential for those partnerships?
Well, I think I'll speak for that first. I think the potential for us is finding those students that want to stay in the area and realize that there is an industry in this area that is going to be able to support them in their future career and development. It's been a challenge. I know the school is trying to grow again and get people back into the mindset of higher education in the hospitality field, because it does get some bad rap sometimes, but it is a big supporter in this community and it's a big job generator in this community. So and it doesn't make any sense for us to ignore or not take advantage of Niagara University. They have the support, they have the resources, they have the staff, they have training. So, for us, it's supporting the university in its efforts to bring students in and then get them trained and give them internship opportunities. Right now, I have an intern starting tomorrow who did the 2-year program at TReC, and now she's going to do the final 2 years at Niagara University, which I love to hear. And it's probably the second or third person that we brought in here that has started out in the TReC program and gone on to the full 4-year program at Niagara, which is just phenomenal. So we're looking forward to that continue to grow.
I have to say, Roscoe, that at one time, it was probably upwards of 60% of my entire staff were Niagara University graduates. And we've been lucky enough to be able to pull from that resource and that pool of superb students that have graduated from the College of Hospitality and Tourism. I speak there once, twice a semester, and love to speak to the classes, because there too we garner some interns, and those interns have ultimately become entry-level employees, and some of those employees are now directors of an individual program within our agency. So it's wonderful to see the longevity of these students that have stayed here because they live here. They resided in Niagara Falls or in Niagara County, and became employees with us. They wanted to stay closer to home. So we're able to, you know, have them in our staff, but they've grown so much over the years. Many of my employees, long tenured employees, and I'm just so thankful for the program that's there that we've been able to interact and pull from. And also our interaction with you and Pat here at the Global Tourism Institute. You know, I think Niagara University and TReC hold a ex officio position on our board, because we feel that both colleges, both University and Niagara County Community College, play a pivotal role in our industry here. And so it's important that they have a voice on our board. So the partnership has been long-standing and really long-term, and we feel it's long-term because we can't do this alone. You know, I think Chris's point earlier, without development, it doesn't help us, and without tourism, it doesn't help him. We all have to be partners in this, as well as the university and college that reside here in Niagara County.
You know, the university, I've been in City Hall for 14 months, and I can tell you that right out of the gate, the university has been a great partner, helping in planning, everything from neighborhood information through major development plans. One of the things that we're working on is an effort to, you know, sort of take the seasonality out of our hospitality industry to see if we can stretch this so that the jobs and the opportunities within the hospitality industry become 12-month opportunities. And the university is working with City Hall to explore those opportunities in research and also providing insight from faculty. I have to tell you, you know, for me, the relationship with Niagara University is also special. I'm a graduate of the class of '81, and from my perspective, you won't find a better university of that size anywhere in terms of the quality of their faculty, the ability for that university to provide concise and appropriate information for us at City Hall to use. I had the benefit of having a few interns at City Hall, and each one that has come to work at City Hall has been exceptional. So our partnership with the university, which continues to grow, we're always looking for new opportunities to work together, and so it's a very valuable partner. At least I can tell you in the short time that I've been at City Hall, Niagara University has been very valuable to us.
Well, I think it's important to understand too that Niagara is a huge economic engine in this marketplace. They're basically like the UB of Niagara Falls up here. They offer a lot of support, a lot of services, a lot of employment, and we need to recognize that. And they're part of the driving force behind some of the redevelopment that's going on in the city. You know, little pieces all add up very quickly in this town, and it's a big part of what Niagara is.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. So yeah, Niagara University is a hugely important institution in Niagara County and Niagara Falls. You know, from our perspective, TIA Montante Development's perspective, we had pleasure and we're very proud of the opportunity we had to work with Niagara University on the developments of this project. You know, this project, which includes Niagara Global Tourism Institute and TReC, as well as it's a mixed-use building with residential apartments above. You know, this space in a very big way demonstrates Niagara University's commitment, not just to Niagara Falls, but really to the downtown core of Niagara Falls. You know, they've made a significant commitment, they've made a significant investment, and I believe that Niagara University's impact on downtown Niagara Falls through NGTI and TReC will be huge, and it's just beginning. A couple of other thoughts on that. First off, what an important asset I feel that this is to the university, not just representative of the commitment they're making to the Falls, but what a great asset it is for the university, for folks at the school to be engaging with, not just the tourist industry, but all of downtown Niagara Falls. I think it's an asset that I think differentiates NU also from a number of other colleges out there as well. The reality is that in Niagara Falls, development projects that I think are very, very important to developing the kind of tourist industry that we want. It's not just a tourist core around the Niagara Falls itself, but vibrant residential and commercial districts where folks can have the authentic Niagara Falls experience. Projects like this need to move forward. They can be extremely difficult to make happen, especially in an environment like we are in Niagara Falls that hasn't seen projects like this move forward in many years because of economic and other realities. So, NU's engagement, NU's commitment, absolutely critical to getting a project like this done. It's actually critical also for a project like this to reach its highest potential. To start, we've transformed an extremely visible corner. We have 17 market rate residential units above, and we have NGTI and TReC that are actively engaging all of Niagara Falls in a way that I feel is inspiring and going to promote a lot of future growth.
All right, thank you. And I'm probably dating myself here. So I was a freshman at NU about 21 years ago, and I came back 7 years ago. So something that's always been said, right? Regardless of what era it is that Niagara Falls has so much potential. So that being said, question for the group is, why should people invest in Niagara Falls? How has that changed due to COVID? And what's the outlook for the future?
It's interesting. I think what we've seen through the whole COVID process is that the tourism market is very resilient in Niagara Falls. We kind of take, we live here, so we see Niagara Falls every day. We see the river, and we kind of take it for granted. But people are still coming here on a regular basis, even with COVID. As we've seen in our hotels, COVID didn't stop them. We had to react to them, and we had to provide a safe experience for them. But people are still coming. I think, if anything, the message needs to get out to the community that, hey, tourism, even with COVID and everything that was shutting down, was still strong in Niagara Falls. Yes, it looked a little bit different, but it was still very strong. And I think any developer that comes in should see those numbers and say, hey, maybe we should do something else, add another attraction, add something else here, because these hotels are proving that there is still business despite everything that everybody says. Granted, the Canadian market being shut down has changed the dynamics a little bit, but this still shows that there is a demand for Niagara Falls, USA. And John's been putting the message out with his targeted marketing, and it's working. So we should be able to capitalize on that. And developers like Montante realize that. And I'm looking forward to see those changes when they come along on Main Street and on Third, and see all those improvements that are happening. The mayor's taken a big step with the intersections, at Third and Main. I questioned him about a year ago on the same project because it was a mess for our tourists. He promised me it would be taken care of. It's been taken care of. And those little things are now filtering through the neighborhood all the way down Whirlpool and down towards the aquarium. And it's exciting to see that. So once they take off, I think more and more developers will realize that, hey, that really is a strong market, and they just ignored it for all these years.
I just wanted to say that when the question is why invest in Niagara Falls, I never think Niagara Falls loses its attraction. No matter what organization of mayors I find myself engaged in, I have, not me personally, but this community has a brand name that doesn't have to be figured out. So it's rather easy for Niagara Falls to be seen as a place of possibilities. You heard Chris speak at the beginning about their investment here and their intention. I was sharing with Chris before we came on with all of you a variety of other opportunities that are out there, some in the tourist hospitality sector, some outside of it. So I don't think that, I think a couple of things. One, I think that the pandemic might have tapped the brakes because everybody was a little bit cautious in terms of banking and financing. But I don't think that the appetite for Niagara Falls has been dulled at all. We have several hotels that are going to be going online over the next a short period. So there is, and will continue to be, an attraction for investment here in the city of Niagara Falls. We just have to be smart in making sure that we're coordinated in what we do. And I think we've got some very good folks in our hotel industry as well as in our development community that have that focus. So I just want to make sure I get it.
Roscoe, I think when I look at the figures, you know, it's all in figures, and we have seen a upward, really skyrocketing over the last 8 to 10 years. We've seen an increase of tourism spending of 65% on the plus side, and those are huge numbers. And so I think, as the mayor said, and someone who was, and Scott said, with targeted campaigns and being very strategic with the limited dollars we have been able to drive those numbers. But what's interesting to me is we need to focus in on those numbers because those numbers are very attractive to a developer. It's wonderful to see Montante and other even Buffalo-based developers that would never even have looked at Niagara Falls years ago that are now here. You know, you have the Hamister Group, you have Palladino and many others that wouldn't even touch Niagara Falls or even look at Niagara Falls. They've developed in Buffalo, but not in Niagara Falls. And Montante is another one. And I think the mindset has changed because they see that we are on a positive track, especially in the tourism industry, to, you know, reestablish the brand here, to put tourism in the forefront. It is probably the #1 industry in Niagara Falls. In the county, it's #2 next to agriculture. So we need to, you know, focus in on those numbers and reposition those numbers to make it attractive to all developers, not just local or regional developers as well.
Yeah, I've got a number of thoughts on this question. I think it's a great question. So yeah, I'll just share my thoughts. I guess, you know, because we've been looking at Niagara Falls for a number of years, and we've been, you know, interested in doing projects because yes, there's a lot of potential, but what does that mean in terms of, like, what potential are we seeing? So, you know, first thing is that we feel that Niagara Falls has been building momentum and that it's on the verge of a breakthrough moment. And that breakthrough moment we see is going to be something that's very similar to the breakthrough that happened in the city of Buffalo, let's say approximately 10 years ago. And you know, keep in mind, like in the city of Buffalo, just like we see in Niagara Falls, you know, what we call the breakthrough moment is really the result of years and years of incremental moves, small projects that added together put us in a position where a tipping point is reached, where critical mass is reached, and that's the breakthrough moment. So I'll get into that a little bit. One of the things that we've been seeing over the last number of years is that we feel that the city of Niagara Falls has been making important connections between the downtown core and the waterfront. And that's been happening for years now. The prime example of that in the very recent past is the removal of the Robert Moses from downtown Niagara Falls to Whirlpool State Park. In addition to this, providing all sorts of wonderful green space and recreation opportunities right on the gorge, what this also does is it absolutely transforms the residential neighborhoods that are essentially between Main and Whirlpool. Those neighborhoods are essentially now waterfront property with direct access to world-class amenities. Few other thoughts. You know, sometimes what we see in Western New York, I certainly used to see it in Buffalo, I see it in Niagara Falls as well, is that sometimes what you find is that everyone's just so focused on, let's say, the current reality, where perhaps the current reality is not what it should be because of perhaps poor planning decisions in the past. You know, but here's the reality is that because of the way Niagara Falls is right now, we have an opportunity, all of us, to take part in transforming the city of Niagara Falls in such a way that it can be world-class and worthy of Niagara Falls itself. I just think that's a wonderful opportunity. And in terms of working with NU, not just NU, the school, but also the students going forward, I think one of the things that's phenomenal about Niagara Falls is that it is a place that you can roll up your sleeves and make a massive impact. A couple of other things, and I'm kind of going on here, but a couple of other things. People want to live in the downtown core. We think that is extremely important for building up any downtown. I think it's also important for Niagara Falls. If we can get residential and more commercial vibrancy downtown, that creates 7 days a week vibrancy on the streets. That is a great condition for building up a downtown core. I also feel that it gives people the opportunity for an authentic tourist experience when they come here. And that experience, as I mentioned before, that's an underserved tourist market, that's an underserved experience. And lastly, one of the other things that I did want to mention, and that directly relates to the project that we're sitting in right now at 616 Niagara, is that another reason why people should invest is because the city of Niagara Falls is an active and intelligent partner in projects moving forward. So in this case, you know, the city put together 11 city parcels, they packaged it in an RFP, they brought incentive dollars to the project in a proactive way, which is very important to mitigate the risk of doing a project like this. So they essentially created a package and a framework for a project like this to move forward in a very uncertain and risky environment. Having a partner like that in city government is absolutely critical, and that's another reason that folks should be investing in the city of Niagara Falls.
And a nice yearly thing for me is, I've worked downtown for 7 years now, and you kind of get lost in the day-to-day. You don't realize all the stuff that's being built around you, all the improvements that are actually happening in real time. So a good example for us is we've been doing the Disney Institute every year for the last 5 years, and typically the reactions I get from folks who come back to Niagara Falls for the first time or haven't been here before, year after year, they come back and they start to notice, and it kind of brings your memory back when they start pointing out all the new things they see year to year and all the new developments that have been happening over the years. It kind of puts you back in perspective that there is a lot of activity happening in the city, and sometimes being in it every day, you kind of get lost in it and you don't realize that there's so much change happening until you're 5 years down the road. And so piggybacking off that question, your individual organizations, what have you guys done planning wise to ensure that not just the future of the tourism industry, but how do you help to continue to grow and improve and be more competitive?
I think from the hotel side, a strong partnership with our DMO, which is John's office, really helps the whole city, helps us, and gives us the ability to then, add more development dollars to another project. We have a couple other projects in the works. They're on the burner right now, waiting for funding, but we're ready to move forward. And I think because of that, John's organization supporting the city and supporting the growth in the tourism market, we'll be able to pull it off very quickly. He mentioned there's couple other projects. I think the mayor mentioned a couple other projects that are in the works as well for the hotel and tourism side. So the little things like the aquarium being redeveloped, the parkway being reopened and removed, all add up to a stronger tourism industry, and it's all the hotels then benefit from it, and then we benefit by hiring the employees in the marketplace, and then all those employees spending money in the community. So it's a constant evolution, but the money moves around very quickly that way. So our job is to ensure that we give a good product. We continue to change and evolve. We've changed this hotel project here where I'm sitting right now a couple different times, added more patios, added more music, just different things that the tourists want. They see it in other markets, it can work here. Yes, it's a seasonal market, but it does work. COVID has, put a little kink into it, but we're working our way around that too.
But I think, Scott, we were once a 3-month industry here. Why we've had that 65% increase over the last 8 years to now a $752 million industry in Niagara County, but a majority of that is in Niagara Falls, the expenditure. There's 21,000 jobs. I think when I first started doing this, the number of tourism jobs was probably 10 or 12,000. I can't remember the exact number, but it is now 21,000 people are employed directly or indirectly by this industry in Niagara Falls and Niagara County. That's large. What's interesting is we can't do this alone. Our job is to market and sell and promote Niagara Falls and Niagara County, but we need the developers. I need partnerships with all the hotels. I need partnerships with all the attractions. The man sitting at the end that is now our new mayor, not new so much anymore, but the last 14 months, but it's been a pleasure to work alongside him over the last 10, 12 months and keeping him abreast of what we're doing, because it was important to have his partnership and his support through this whole process. But we can't do this alone, even though we just market and sell. It's important that we keep abreast of what's happening on the development side and support that, and support what projects the mayor has to make sure this community excels and increases. The tourism community is only as strong as the community itself. And so our worry is that the community is healthier and stronger. I sit on the community missions board. It's important that we pay attention to all of our partners in this community, and everyone grows and increases and improves as we go along. We're excited about the development for the future because more hotels, we're funded by bed tax. That gives us more dollars to reinvest in marketing campaigns so that we can grow even stronger. They started out by saying we were once a 3-month industry. It was June, July, August. It was Memorial Day to Labor Day. We increased that to 5 months, which was May through September. And we're now looking at a solid 7-8 month industry here from April to November. And so now we've shortened that period that we need to concentrate on, which is that mid-November to April time period, which is not a big period. And we can do that. We can tackle that. And we will turn this into a 12-month industry. I know I sort of went off on a tangent, not really to the question, but just giving you a picture of what we're looking at to the future, that we want to make this a solid 12-month industry because people are not afraid of the cold weather. In fact, we've put out through the channels over the last 2 weeks the Frozen Falls. It is all over the world in just less than 72 hours to a week here with exposure in major publications. Even Ryan and what's her name this morning, I can't remember, the 9 o'clock show showcased the Frozen Falls as well. So, we try to capture, talk about pivoting, it went frozen. We promoted the hell out of it, and now it went to 50 degrees today. So we're like, damn it, we can't win because of the weather, component that's built around it. But trying to capitalize and capture everything we can as quickly as we can.
So the question is how are we working to ensure there's a future of the tourist industry here? So, like I said, we're a developer, so we focus on doing development projects. But, I wanted to talk a little bit about our philosophy for doing projects in the city of Niagara Falls. As I mentioned before, we feel that there's been a lot of momentum building and individual projects work together towards a critical mass that kind of leads to a breakthrough here. So, we've completed this project that we're sitting in here today. That's something that we're very proud of. And the way we look at this project is that, by some measure, it is significant. It's 30,000 square feet. You have residential units on top of commercial space, but the reality is that in our world, we consider this project a single or a double. This is a smaller project. It's not a silver bullet. It's not a pie in the sky project that's going to solve all of the problems. It's a meaningful project that can transform a corner, that can transform the neighborhoods and homes immediately surrounding that project. It's meaningful. Now, our focus is going to be on doing singles and doubles types projects for the next several years in the city of Niagara Falls, because our philosophy is that 3, 4, 5, 6 of these projects, once they're completed, if you have the right commercial tenants in place and you're filled with residential tenants above, that is going to move the needle in a significant way. Those are the things that are going to transform the fringe neighborhoods on the outside of the downtown core. And again, there's been so much in the past in terms of the city of Niagara Falls thinking so big towards the silver bullet approach. We're trying to look at it the opposite way. We're going to start small. We're going to start grassroots. We're going to build momentum. Hopefully other folks will join us. And I'm talking about developers here. Other developers will join us as well, adding to that growing chorus of momentum. And then we're going to see future growth and opportunity. So that's how we're going to contribute there, as we're going to focus on singles and doubles, bringing more of those to the city of Niagara Falls. Just honored to play a role in the upcoming transformation.
Government's role in assisting the future of the tourism industry really comes down to paying attention to the little things that make the tourist sector comfortable and inviting. So much has been neglected over years prior to my coming here. And so we're looking at some things that deal with lighting, security, kinds of things that I think every tourist section, anywhere you go, are the things that really a community, the government can do to support the tourism industry. We have a number of projects and proposals that are currently being worked through in terms of funding for us. And if we're able to put those together, I think that our hospitality industry, particularly in the downtown core, will see some improvement in those areas. But I think that as government, our way of assisting in the future is just to pay attention to the things that our hospitality industry needs and do our best to make sure that we're serving them.
And on that same point, Mr. Mayor, just the redevelopment of Whirlpool Street and that cleaning up of that whole corridor supports our tourism industry. It now gives us something else to add to the guest experience. They can go down there, they can experience nature, they can see the river from a different angle. They can go down the steps. I mean, as natives, we go down those steps all the time, walking into the gorge. Well, for a tourist coming in and seeing that and being comfortable doing it, it just adds another element that hopefully will enhance their stay, enhance their spending in the market, and give another reason to stay another day.
Exactly.
So it does make a big difference.
And I think it's great to hear that the administration is putting a great emphasis on really shoring up the fundamentals and the foundations of the tourism industry, because you can have all the investment that you'd like, but if these fundamentals of lighting and security aren't met to begin with, you're cutting yourself off from the knees before everything even starts. So it's great to hear that there's really a concerted effort to shore up the foundations of the industry. Now, switching gears again back to the COVID, what's been the biggest challenge for you and your organizations? What's the biggest challenge you've faced during this pandemic?
I think from the hotel side, it's keeping the guests safe, or keeping the perception of safety forefront in our own operations, so that the guests are comfortable when they're here. Hilton has put a ton of work into it, and we deal with it every day. It's also getting the staff into the hotels. Staff, when things slowed down, a lot of staff disappeared, or they had other obligations. Trying to create a staff when you have very limited daycare or schooling issues has been a whole upheaval that I don't think anybody's realized the destruction is done on the economy. And we deal with it every day. We could probably use, another 50 employees, as we go into the season. And I'm worried about where we're going to get those from. There's a lot of people that are still fearful of COVID. They're still waiting for their vaccination, or they don't want to be bothered with the challenges that COVID has placed on us. You have people coming from all over, and that scares people. So that's probably one of our biggest challenges. It's getting better, but it's taken a long time to get people through that.
Mayor, do you want to go? Or?
Go right ahead.
I think we all have our unique challenges during this time. I had many sleepless nights, as we all did, when this began last March. And it was just the worry of what our industry was going to be like, was going to be decimated. Well, it was decimated very quickly. It's the hardest hit industry in the world, the first to be impacted the greatest. The largest number, it's upwards of 50 and 60% of the unemployed are from the hospitality and tourism sector. So, you know, what kept me up at night is, what's our industry going to look like? You know, when do we reopen advertising efforts? When do we start promoting again? We've taken it day by day. We've had to keep very fluid. The challenges remain still. You know, you don't want to be deaf or really blind to what's happening in the world or in the community. But we still had to be active because this is a leisure market. We were perfectly suited with wide open spaces, as I mentioned earlier, and that we could still garner some business. It wasn't a great summer by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it was horrible, but we had bright spots. Last August was over 60% on most Saturdays in hotel occupancy. Labor Day was over 96%. And the latest bright spot was President's Day weekend and Valentine's a few weeks ago, where the hotel occupancy was over 73%. So those are like, we just keep trying to hold on to little bright spots. But the challenges remain because we have to pay attention to the traveler sentiment and consumer sentiment as to what they're feeling as far as travel. It'll go up and down week to week. Are they comfortable? Are they, as Scott mentioned, do they feel safe? You know, there's still all those factors. Those are starting to be, the safety factors and worry of travel is starting to be replaced with more optimism for the future. I think our future is very bright. The pent-up demand for travel is going to be the largest we've ever seen. I said when the floodgates open up, they're going to open up huge, and they're going to be fantastic for us and the entire world. Because people, the first thing they want to do is travel. Travel to visit family, friends, to destinations that have been on their bucket list, and their home. Our largest website traffic, believe it or not, was in 2020. We increased the number to our website hugely over 2019 because people are at home, they're dreaming of travel. So we're trying to push them and keep them activated in the Niagara Falls brand as much as we can, even while people are laying at home quarantined or laying dormant. So it's important that we keep that brand in the forefront of people's minds as we're going through this now for over a year. We thought we'd be in a different position today than we were last March, but here we still remain in the midst of this pandemic.
Good interest.
Well, you know, from our perspective, in terms of the challenges that we faced as a development company due to the pandemic, so I mean, obviously, the future is impossible to predict, and it's impossible to predict the future impacts of COVID. Now, if you rewind back, obviously, to early last year, you know, that uncertainty just created, from a development perspective, lots of project risk. And that risk created huge challenges for us being able to move projects forward. So in this case, to either get the right commercial tenants or to get the projects financed. There's big questions out there. You know, will our residential units lease up if we do a project? Will the commercial tenants sign on? And if so, will they remain viable? Now, in our case, a couple of kind of stories and insights here. This building, we opened up the residential units for occupancy on March 1st of 2020. So the world kind of shut down 2 or 3 weeks after that. You know, not ideal in terms of bringing a new product to the market. Now, I'm happy to say that we're almost full. This took a lot longer than it would have typically taken in a quote unquote normal environment. But that's a big deal, and entering new project opportunities in that kind of uncertain environment, you know, put the entire development community in a position where lots and lots of projects were getting shut down and not moving forward. Now, in terms of leasing, it's also created massive challenges because, you know, this uncertainty is created an environment in which businesses are unsure if they want to make an investment because what's going to be there on the other side. Now, since we're moving several projects forward in Niagara Falls, and we've been talking to a number of potential tenants, event operators, brewery, restaurants, They're wondering, is the market going to be there after we've invested this substantial sum of money? Is that market going to be there to help us become a thriving business where we can recoup our investment, pay for our employees, and have a significant future? Now, last March, again, in Niagara Falls, we were right there on the cusp of signing a fantastic local, reputable organization that would have opened a brewery and restaurant on 3rd Street in Niagara Falls. Actually, Mayor, I had spoken to you a couple of weeks before the world shut down there. And this was going to be, in my view, a perfect tenant that would have created a huge new opportunity in terms of the tourist experience. Well, that may happen, but we're a year later and that project hasn't happened yet. And that's because of the uncertainty in that marketplace. So that's created a lot of uncertainty. A lot of developers are either shying away from projects because of that uncertainty or unable to move them because they can't get the tenants or the financing. And that has just been a massive challenge to work through.
I suppose from my perspective, the greatest challenge starts with budget. As I said earlier, paying attention to the hospitality industry and to our core and listening. Obviously, we would like to respond in a much greater way, but we are limited right now because a lot of our resources have been pared back as a result of losses in revenue. So we're still challenged with trying to figure out how we can achieve the necessities that the hospitality industry needs given our limited resources, and we're doing our best to get there. I don't worry, and I don't want to say it in a way that seems as though we are callous toward that. I don't worry so much about, I know that Scott and the other businesses downtown, large hotel operators, I know that they will have corporate assistance in getting to a safe place. I worry, and what we think about quite a bit at City Hall are the smaller businesses in the community. The things that, the places that might not necessarily have that kind of support structure. So what we've been challenged with is making sure that they stay healthy, that they have a tomorrow, trying to communicate the information to them so that they're able to stand on their own 2 feet when this thing clears. The other thing too to remember is, as much as we advance with vaccinations and we get more information about the virus itself in terms of treatments, it still hasn't gone away. And folks like Chris's business, Scott's business, they rely on City Hall when it comes to construction planning, all those kinds of things. I need to make sure too that our workforce stays healthy. So that's another issue inside of government. If our planning department, if our permits, the folks who are in charge of all of those things are coming down with the virus, I don't have personnel to help these folks do the projects that they want to do. So it's a constant effort in City Hall to make sure that we're staying healthy, to make sure that our staff is being mindful. In fact, I've just been able to work with Memorial Medical Center on the possibility of getting a broader range of our staff, city workers lined up for vaccines. That's important because all of the things that we do to support not just the hospitality industry, the community at large, requires us to make sure that our workforce stays healthy. So in between the budget, making sure that we stay healthy, fighting with state and federal officials to open up the border and make sure that we get the money that we're entitled to, it is a full-time job.
Mr. Mayor, it sounds like you've had a pretty interesting and full first year.
I have said to so many folks, I love baseball. For me, by the way, Wednesday the 17th was the beginning of life again because the teams went down to spring training. So I always say to folks at City Hall when they ask me, how am I doing? I'm waiting for a good country fastball that I can lean into because the curveballs, screwballs, and knuckleballs that have been coming for the last 14 months, they've been hell.
You're doing pretty prominent, yeah.
I think we've all had a good practice in how to pivot throughout this entire year. So commend all your organizations and your administration for being able to, like you said, being able to pivot with all the curveballs coming our way. So that's that's all for me as far as our questions. We have actually a pretty active audience tonight that have a handful of questions for everybody in the group. So first question comes about from the chat. Put into context, anybody in the group, how important is that border reopening, even to our Canadian friends?
From a hotel perspective, it's immensely important that that border reopens. That is a support system for the retail in this market. That retail goes hand in hand with our guests coming in. It's a support service. It's another activity that people don't think of as tourism, but retail is tourism for a lot of people to come into this market. They're going to shop. They're going to see the falls. They're going to go to Wegmans. They're going to go to Beat Camillo's. That's all part of the experience of coming to an area. So to not have that border open or not have the Canadians coming across to help support that retail puts a crimp in their operations. They bring money to the market that we need to keep those stores open.
I can only say this, whether I'm being interviewed by local media or by Canadian media, from my perspective, the border closure isn't just a tourist issue. It's really more a commerce question for us. There are so many folks on this side of the border that might have a favorite restaurant in Ontario, or someone in Ontario that has a favorite store they like to shop at here. So to Scott's point, that entire commerce piece, it's almost as though Niagara Falls, Ontario is just like another neighborhood simply separated by the river. And that's really the way it is for those of us who are born and raised here. That's the way the entire Niagara region in Canada is for us, whether it's family or, as I say, that convenient place that you like to go to. And it's so convenient for us. And that's all gone. And that commerce that transpires between the two communities has been a significant loss. I know from our side of the border, in terms of looking at our sales numbers, we certainly have been impacted by that. So for not only is it a tourist issue, because it certainly is, but in a broader sense, it's a commerce question for us. We've really lost those locals. And that's what I'll call our friends in the Niagara region. We've lost those locals that come to us and spend money, enjoy our amenities, and we're looking forward to getting them back again.
Roscoe, we have a service called Visa View, which gives you a glimpse of international expenditures on Visa credit cards. And Canada is #1 in this market as far as international expenditures. But to the mayor's point, we don't treat them as international. We treat them as our neighbors. It's like cutting off LaSalle or DeVoe or another neighborhood to the general, vicinity. It's like cutting off a neighborhood. It is an international border. It's an international country. But we do treat them as neighbors, and they impact us greatly. So in that Visa View thing, they spend upwards of $52 million was the last number in 2019 on goods and services. And that's just Visa credit cards. That doesn't include MasterCard, American Express, all the other types or forms of payment that they use while they're in the marketplace. That's just Visa. And that's just in a given year. That's really on not so much services, but on goods bought and purchased at retail units here. Shopping is the #1 activity for Canada traveling into Niagara County. Shopping, dining is #2, and staying in our hotels is #3. So when our retailers are being negatively impacted, it's hurt, and you start to see stores closing at fashion outlets and in other parts of the county, as well as other neighborhoods. And so we look forward to those borders being back open, because there is pent-up demand on that end, where they are going to want to shop and dine and stay here once again.
Yeah, and I would just add that, from a development perspective, we're always looking at the unique attributes of specific neighborhoods, of specific cities. In Niagara Falls, obviously, so much focus is on the tourism market, which I feel there's a lot of opportunity to better serve that market. Well, the other unique attribute that we talk a lot about when we're looking at Niagara Falls and potential projects here is the cross-border opportunity, which we feel is, pieces are just putting into place now that have the opportunity to blossom significantly. From a quality of life issue, I think I agree with everyone. It goes both ways. In fact, I was talking to my son about this last night, just almost a year ago exactly to this day. We took a 5-minute ride from our house over the Whirlpool Bridge, hopped on the GO train, and spent a lovely day in Toronto. Obviously, a lot of the opportunity for the city of Niagara Falls is that flow, but coming in reverse. So I think that the reality is, in terms of the opportunity for cross-border and us taking advantage of that from the city of Niagara Falls, directly adjacent, just a 30-second walk away from Canada. That is a massive opportunity for the future, and I'm hoping that the border opens soon.
All right, I've got another question coming in. It looks like this is geared more to John and also Scott. I'm reading out here. While the international tourism market has shrunk due to COVID restrictions, we hope more domestic tourists started to truly appreciate what Niagara Falls, New York can offer. Have either of you noticed tourists from certain states that have not traditionally been in our target markets in the past?
It's a good question. It's interesting because there's anywhere between 79 and 90 million outbound trips from US citizens taken abroad every year, more than domestic trips taken within the United States. So 79 million outbound trips, there's only 71 million traveling trips within domestically. So there is propensity for people to travel abroad. It has more mystique and appeal, but that can't happen. And so I think there's and this is a great question, this is a great opportunity for us to tap into those audiences. And that's what we're trying to do is everyone is going to, when this really opens up, every community, not just Niagara Falls, is going to be out wanting a piece of that pie. And we keep having meetings with our ad agency. I'm like, we've got to be unique, very different, and really on a unique approach when we're going to be competing in this global marketplace, wanting a piece of that pie and those people to travel. It's going to be quite a while for international. We don't see international travelers. We'll start to see some of it trickle in 22 is what the projection is, but not a full return to 2019 international numbers until 2024. So we have some years here to tap into audiences, and that's, to the question, that we haven't been able to. And so I think there's great upside on the leisure market for us, domestic leisure market, to tap into those people that, yes, they know about Niagara Falls, but we can, help them write that off of their bucket list before they get back to their international travels.
Roscoe, this is a little bit different answer from John's. What I've noticed in our own hotel is we've seen a lot more people from, especially this time of year in the off season, from Florida coming up here. Florida and the southern states, which is very unusual. It's kind of strange to have them come up in the wintertime, and it's almost like they're shocked that we have winter up here. It's been kind of unsettling in a way. Because we've heard so much about the problem with COVID down there and how they ignore the rules and things like that, and it really hasn't been the case. But there's been a lot more of the Hispanic market coming up from the southern states, especially Florida, and a lot from Puerto Rico even. And that's just a little microcosm of customers coming here, that we haven't seen. They haven't been so evident in the past. I have more Hispanic staff on now to support that market that's coming here, and never had that before. So, and that's from within our own country. So it's definitely kind of changed things a little bit.
All right, and with respect to everyone's time, we'll take one more question from the group. This one reads, in order to overcome the seasonality issue in Niagara Falls tourism, I think it's crucial to have some indoor facilities that can host entertainment, sport, recreation activities, and events during the winter seasons. Are there any projects or plans being developed?
May I? We have had substantial discussion. There is a group of business members, as well as the university, that have talked about the need for an event center, something that would meet all of the elements in the question that's been asked. It also, I have also engaged in conversations with the Seneca Nation as recently as last week on that very subject. Because I think the other thing that we have to remember is that while we are all in the room talking about various tourism pieces, there's a large entity downtown here that needs to continue to be a part of the conversation and continue to be a part of the partnership, and that is the Seneca Nation. So yes, there are conversations going on about the need for an indoor facility that allows for that. It seems to be getting some traction among those who recognize how that can fill what John has suggested is our gap period, that period from mid-November through the end of March. And if we're able to pull that together, if we're able to put that in place, the conversation has also sort of evolved into what would be those amenities that would then support that kind of center, that kind of location. So yes, those conversations are going on. I'm hopeful that we can move them forward rapidly.
I also think there's a need for a large amateur sports facility that could be indoors with, indoor soccer fields, indoor, whatever fields or whatever type of indoor sports that could be placed into one large facility. There was a study done a few years ago by CSL, which is a very reputable company that does consulting for arenas and convention centers and that type of thing. And they said, even in that study, that an amateur sports facility, because there's a huge rise in families that travel for hockey and soccer and other amateur sports. And so I think with us being a family-oriented destination and a bucket list destination, you combine that sports facility for them to come, I think would be a huge upside, as the mayor said, to fill in those gaps, fill in those times. So I think there's, I think we can look at everything, but I think it has to be properly studied. I do worry a little bit of an indoor arena. There's so many in the market, and there's only, can this market withstand another concert or another concert facility or that type of thing? So I think we just have to be very smart and very strategic in how we approach this and get it done right. Very open to anything that will improve our business, especially during the winter period.
Well, it's great to hear that these projects being discussed. Obviously, they're addressing a much needed need, our seasonality in the region. It's even better to hear that the approach being taken for this is an ecosystem approach. We're looking at the industry as a whole and pulling our stakeholders together and really having an active discussion of how can this positively affect the industry in the city. With that, gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to come out today to speak with our audiences, talk about your organization and really the positive outlook for Niagara Falls for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night, everyone.